Hello, I'm Michaela Kavanaugh, and this is my first unit plan. So let's just go ahead and start. My connector or theme is animals for my unit, so everything's going to center around animals and be connected in that way. I chose first grade as my grade that I focused in on, so all my standards are going to revolve around that. And then let's just go ahead and let's start with the drama portion. I think that's where it's going to make most sense to start. For the drama portion, I used the book. It's called the Usborne Big Book of Big Animals, and it's a really cool book with big pop-outs that explain facts and interesting characteristics of animals. So we're going to have our first exposure in drama, and it's going to be dramatic acting. So to get started, we're just going to first explore the book. I'm going to read it aloud, and I'll be using all the pop-outs and displaying all the animals that are inside. Before we start doing that, I think what's going to be beneficial for all the students is that we'll do a KWL chart. So then we're going to talk about what we know about animals that are going to be in this book and what we want to know more about. And then after I've read it, we can fill out the learned portion of the KWL chart and have a discussion about if any of the things that we thought we knew were wrong, if we answered any of the want-to-knows, and any other interesting things we found in the book. So then we have our first standard here, which is participate in collaborative conversations with diverse partners about grade 1 topics and texts with peers and adults in small and larger groups. So then we're going to go on to our second exposure, and we're going to do a little group activity. So students are going to work together, and they're going to pick an animal that we've talked about in the book. It has to be one that was discussed. And then they're going to investigate more into this specific animal. And we want them to learn about any characteristics or behaviors or any interesting things that we might not have talked about in this one book. There's a website here that is really cool, and you can click on a specific animal, and it'll pop up more information. There's a couple little games to play just to make it more fun. So we have another standard up here for writing, and then we have a technology standard too, since we're incorporating that website. So then after that, we're going to have a third exposure. So once these student groups have really dug into the animal that they've chosen and learned more about how these animals interact and all their characteristics, they're going to write a script of how this animal is going to act. Their script can have talking and they can speak, even though we know animals don't, just to get their point across of how their animal would be. It's kind of up to them. We want it to be a little more dramatic, so anything, they can do movements, they can create a mask if they want, or over here we're going to talk about their art project. They could incorporate that here. And then once they come up with this, and it's going to be pretty, even though it's first grade, they're going to have a lot of opportunity to be creative here, and their script can really be anything that they want as long as they're telling information they've learned about their animal. And then we'll take turns as a class, and they will present what they have learned. So we have a theater standard here that's going to connect with that, and then all of this will actually connect back to this language arts. So let's hop over here. So we're going to do an informational writing for our language arts, and we're going to continue with this book. So we're actually going to have the fourth exposure of this book. So after exploring the book during our drama lessons, students are going to have all this information that they've learned about by exploring whatever animal that they've chosen. So now they have written their script, which they got to be very creative, and they got to discuss how they think their animal is going to act. Now we want them to dig in a little deeper, and we want to have something in print. So they're going to work on writing an informational story. And I want them to focus on, for this part, I want them to make sure they include the purpose of the animal's color, and how they're going to use this color to survive, or how they're going to use this color, maybe it's like for camouflage, but I want them to look at what color their animal is, and I really want them to think about the way that that's going to help this animal in whatever environment they live. Now, they might not have talked about that or found information up here in the dramatic acting portion, so they might need to do a little extra research. And so once they have this down, I want them to get down a short little story about the information about their animal, just to solidify the knowledge that they've been learning. And then we have our standard for reading for information. We're going to identify the main topic and retell key details of a text. So they can use this book for their details. They could use this website for their details. It's up to them, wherever they found their information. Let's hop up into the art portion. So for the art portion, we're going to do handbag color psychology. I think to start off with, we're going to introduce students just to color theory and what the different colors mean. Now I'm probably not going to use language such as color theory. I'll explain that to them, and we're going to have to break it down a little simpler, but we have this picture here that I could pop up and maybe have on the wall to talk about the colors and color groupings and things like that, just to get them introduced to what kind of colors they might want to use. Then we're going to, for the second exposure, we're going to make connections as to what these colors that we've talked about now and learned about, what they have to do with the animals. So for their informational writing, they needed to include their color of their animal in some way. Now we're really going to talk about more about all the colors of different animals and the meaning of them and the color theory behind it. So we're going to have an art standard. They're going to engage in creative art making using observation and investigation. And then we're also going to have a reading for information, because they're going to describe the connection between two ideas or pieces of information, because they're going to need to use what they've learned about their animals and what we are now talking about in color theory. And then once we've discussed that and we've talked about how that's going to work, we're going to do our third exposure, which is going to be very fun. And students are going to be given a paper bag, and they're going to have to use what they have learned about color theory to create their animal. They've acted their animal out, they've wrote about their animal, and now I really want to see what they've learned about their animal color and things like that. So we're going to meet this standard. We're going to explore safe uses of materials, tools, and procedures to create works of art or design. And this would be an example maybe of just what the project would end up looking like. They'll have their bag, and it's up to them. They can put on stripes, they can put on whiskers. Maybe if they have a zebra, they're going to make sure that they have all those stripes, because we want to make sure that they understand that an elephant isn't orange. That there's a reason that animals have their colors, and that they are going to then create them. So let's hop down to this music. So we're going to have a circle dance, which I think is going to be really fun. So to get them started, since they are first grade, I think we're just going to play the song, and we're all going to practice as a group counting out the beats of 8. Just getting that feel for how the song feels, and when those, how quickly to count and things like that. So we're just going to, as a whole class, practice that. Then after students have become familiar with this song, I'm going to teach them choreography to the circle dance, and they're going to watch me first. We'll have the first group is going to be individual, and then we'll have partner dancing. And then once I have taught them and I think that they're understanding exactly what we're doing, students are going to perform the circle dance to the song, and we're going to meet this standard right here. So we're going to demonstrate locomotor and non-locomotor movements and by doing this circle dance. So let's go ahead and let's go down to science here. So for science, we're still sticking with our animal theme. We're going to be working on classifying animals. So we're going to use this book again, the Usborne Big Book of Big Animals, since they're familiar with it. And it is a really great book, so I don't think they're going to be tired of it yet. And there's different pop-outs, so I think it's still going to be really beneficial for their learning. Students are going to take what they've learned in reading this book, and they're going to they've read this book, but they've also done their own studying and finding out more details and the color of animals and things like that. So they're going to learn how to classify animals based on these characteristics. So we can do a group discussion with this, or we can do a worksheet. This one would be one that I would want to see how the students are doing in the other areas and if they're really grasping the characteristics and stuff. And so if they are, then we can just have a nice discussion about it, about which animals have coloring so that they can be camouflaged, and which animals have color for other purposes, and different ways that we could classify animals. So with this one, we're going to meet a science standard. We're going to make observations to construct an evidence-based account that young plants and animals are alike, but not exactly like their parents. So we're going to talk about that and the similarities we see and the differences, and that's how we're going to end up classifying. Along with that, we're going to have a language arts standards, because we're going to identify the main topic and retell key details of a text, because we're going to be talking about that story again and the information they found. So let's hop over to math here. We're going to work on counting animals. So we're going to really focus on our addition facts in first grade. So this is going to be a great activity. Students are going to receive pictures of animals, such as they're going to have 5 zebras who each have 10 stripes. So they're going to determine how many stripes all the animals have total. So first we're probably going to want them to just count how many zebras there are, and then figure out how many stripes are on each zebra. And then they can count every single stripe on the paper if they're not quite understanding the grasping what I'm wanting them to do, or if they're a more advanced learner, they're going to understand that of 5 zebras each have 10, and they're going to be able to work it out in their head a little quicker. So I think everybody's going to be able to do this one, no matter what level they're at. Then for our second exposure, students are going to receive other scenarios. So we're going to do this one as a group, and I'm going to demonstrate that. And then students will receive other scenarios of animals, such as Dalmatian spots, and then they're going to independently complete this addition problems. I'll give them a couple, and students who work quicker are going to be able to do this mentally, and then the students who are struggling a little more with math, they're still going to be able to do it and gain a lot of knowledge from it, but they might take a little bit longer. So we're going to have our math content standard, because we're going to be able to count to 120, so we're going to be practicing that skill. Along with that, we're also going to be engaging in creative arts, using observation and investigation. So we're connecting with an art standard here, because they're going to have pictures and they're going to have to understand the spots and the stripes, and it's going to be a fun art way to integrate art into math. Our last topic is going to be social studies, and we're going to dive into extinct animals, which I think is really going to interest the kids. So students are going to use this website here, and with support from the teacher and other students, to learn more about extinct animals. So we're just going to start off this lesson with just exploring and gaining information, and we're going to be connected to a language arts standard, because we're going to be reading for information here. Then we're going to hop into our second exposure, and students are going to use the information that they've found during our first lesson to draw a picture and then summarize the information they learned about extinct animals under their drawing. I really like this activity because it's open for interpretation. One student could find an extinct animal that's the same as the person across the room, and they could have totally different information about it, and their pictures could come out different, and they can summarize in different ways. I think it's just open to interpretation, as long as they're focusing in on an extinct animal. And this way we're going to be having a standard. We're going to cite textual evidence to support this, and then we're also going to be having an art standard, because we're going to be engaging in creative art making. So I think that's going to be great, and it really, our social studies really intertwines with language arts and art, because they're going to get to creatively explain themselves and their extinct animal. So that is my Unit 1, which is all about animals. And I have different standards integrated into each section. We have language arts commonly throughout, along with art in quite a few of them. And that way it's going to keep children entertained, and they're going to have fun learning about animals and still learning about important content area. So that's my Unit 1.